Hello, everyone out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Uh, Only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may turn out to be. Well, as always, we got a lot to talk about on today's program, and we're going to kind of hit the ground running, talking about um, some updates on an important local issue that we've been following for some time now. I'm talking about uh, kind of the resistance in the state of Michigan to AI data moratoriums. There's a really good update from Bridge, Michigan, which the headline itself exposes some interesting, what I would call bias, but it's very informative and it kind of gives you the state of things as far as the resistance to AI data centers as it stands here at the state. So this was published on February 2nd. It was written by Kelly House. It's on Bridge, Michigan. Data center moratoriums pile up in Michigan. No one knows if they'll work. Oh, what a mystery. And of course, I'm being a little facetious right off the bat here. Um, the moratoriums are essentially the results of public pressure, and I almost feel like this headline is a way of trying to sow some doubt and this building consensus we've seen from the grassroots across the state of Michigan that recognizes all of the damage and the environmental and to our pocketbooks that AI data centers bring when they are built up uh, in our towns, municipalities, farmlands, etc. So with that, I am going to go ahead. I'm going to read from the article here. Um, Actions, and I'm skipping down a little bit. Actions come amid a wave of packed local meetings where residents have expressed fear of lost farmland, polluted air and water, concerns about the risks of AI, or that Michiganders could end up on the hook for the big dollar facilities if the artificial intelligence boom goes bust. And it is likely that that is going to happen. That's not to say that AI technology is just going to disappear, which I mean, honestly, I'm call me a Luddite. I would like that to happen, but the bubble itself is definitely seems like it may pop sometime in the near future. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Beneath it all simmers a resentment that lawmakers, eager for taxes and jobs amid a multi-trillion-dollar global AI boom, have promised tax breaks to some of the world's richest corporations, while Michigan residents feel the financial pinch. More than 130 Bridge, Michigan readers named data centers as a top issue they'd like to see 2026 candidates address in Bridge Listens, an ongoing unscientific survey. It's cutting across all political, socioeconomic, and cultural lines, said Marjorie Steele, executive director of the Michigan Economic Development Responsibility Alliance, which opposes data center expansion. These data centers are being opposed in every community where they are proposed, including communities which are heavily industrialized already, which are rural agricultural, which are heavily Republican, heavily Democrat, wealthy, poor, and everywhere in between. And that is one interesting wrinkle to this issue that I'm going to be reading a bit more below, but there actually are. It's one of the first like bipartisan issues I've seen in a long time, where you are actually seeing a lot of these Republican representatives stepping up and speaking out against these AI data centers. That does not necessarily translate to top leadership. I will talk about more of that in a moment. But it is interesting that usually you only see bipartisanship in two instances. One is when the oligarchy that runs both the Democratic and Republican parties want something done, it gets done. The other instance is when you see public pressure so massive and impossible to ignore that both parties are forced to pay attention to it. And I think we are witnessing an example of the latter. A representative for the Data Center Coalition and Industry Trade Group touted data centers as essential digital infrastructure. The blah 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 blah. I don't care what he has to say. Sorry, I've already told you I have an anti-capitalist bias on this news program, so that shouldn't come as a surprise. I don't really want to hear from the um, industry trade group. Meanwhile, a politically diverse coalition is calling for a statewide moratorium and an end to the tax breaks that have lured big tech to Michigan. Seizing on the backlash, some candidates for statewide office are making data center skepticism a central theme of their campaigns. Still unclear is whether the resistance will have any lasting effect on the industry's planned expansion into Michigan and how far local governments can go in their efforts to slow or block data center development without running afoul of laws prohibiting exclusionary zoning. And hold on just a sec, folks. I think we are going to be joined by my co-host here. All right, Lawrence, how are you? We're live. How you doing?
I'm all right, man. Just running a bunch of errands right now, trying to multitask. That's all.
Yep. Well, I was actually in the middle of talking about AI data centers a bit. Um,
Oh,
and I was talking again, like there's been a lot of pushback all over the state of Michigan. Just as we reported earlier this year, or I guess last year, close by down in Pavilion Township, you had people kind of getting together to pump the brakes on it. And yeah, if you dive into this article, as I said, it's interesting that we have people on both sides of the political aisle kind of responding negative to this. Now, what's interesting about that also is I mentioned some of the leadership. Does not necessarily agree with some of the representatives at the state level. Both Gretchen Whitmer and Matt Hall have both expressed their support of AI data centers. Hall has said, "I think we need more data centers." And Gretchen Whitmer, in response to a possible moratorium on data centers, her spokesperson, Stacey LaRouche, was more unequivocal. Any legislation that prevents us from growing the economy and creating jobs is an automatic non-starter and would be vetoed. So
yeah.
again, there's while there is kind of a bipartisan consensus in the rank and file, and you do see this, like rural, deep, quote unquote, red areas in Michigan have unequivocally said, you know, keep this out of our backyard. You see the leadership of the respective parties in the state of Michigan in full-throated support of building these AI data centers, and not to kind of you know uh, pop quiz you as soon as you jump on, Lawrence, but kind of curious, like what are your thoughts? I know we talked a lot about AI data centers in the last year or so. I don't think I've really picked your brain too much about it, but it kind of maybe more broadly what you think about the whole AI data center thing, and particularly that disconnect between the base and the leadership on this issue.
Um, I am not for the AI data centers. We talked about how, um, I mean, first of all, I already live in a neighborhood that's polluted because of multinational corporations choosing to uh use my neighborhood as a sacrifice zone. And people have been dealing with health issues because of it for decades now. You know what I'm saying? Um, Black neighborhoods and black and brown neighborhoods, when it comes to we talk about environmental racism and things of that nature, um, corporations using either the water system or the air to pollute uh, disenfranchised neighborhoods for profit and basically being able to get away with it. We saw in what was it? It's in St. Louis in Missouri, right? That's happening right now. A city where Grok was built at is poisoning the residents. It's poisoning the water and it's poisoning the air, and people are getting cancer from it. Like this is that that's not a joke. That's not a punchline. That's real facts. I don't want that in here in Michigan. And out and that's before we even like that's the environmental part. The other part that bothers me is a phenomenon that some of some professors that I've talked to about AI was talking about things called cognitive offloading. People are quick to go to AI or Google uh, and ask them to do tasks that normally you would have to understand how to do and why you need to do it. There are students that will have AI type their papers or do their reports, and you and AI will lie. It is wrong. It will feed out when you ask questions false information, right? And we've seen it do so. Um, when it doesn't have legitimate answers, or when the algorithm that's in the AI in the AI system feels like it needs to be Mecha Hitler. Like I
Yeah.
I I have no problem with AI if people are using it as a tool to help them learn, or if people are trying to use it uh, and it's making uh, certain tasks like hey, I need you to spell check this for me, and I don't have anybody else to spell check it for me, right? Spell check this paper for me, right?
Just as an aside, like I think it is interesting how at the very dawn of AI, it's like natural predisposition. It's like, okay, Grok, you got to tell the truth about everything. And as it turns out, reality has something of a left-wing bias. So they have to train it to be a racist robot. And
Yeah.
I swear to God, if we get any sort of like weird Terminator future, it's going to be the fault of Elon Musk who decided we need to train racist robots. That's but
Yeah.
go ahead, sir.
That's what my dog. I'm good. I'm good. I'm I think it's something that yes can be a helpful tool, and tools can be abused and be harmful. And so far so far in our diatribe and in our and from what I've seen, it has been nothing but harmful to black and brown people. So now I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the was it what's the term you use? Cognitive offloading.
You know,
Yeah,
like
that's
it's a thing that people do when okay we had to learn when we were younger. We learned how to write in cursive, right? We learned about conjugating a verb, right? These are things that you need to learn how to do if you're going to communicate, right? Especially in English class. There's been a number of English professors and people who I know that are in higher education. They're saying no, students are just going to Chat GPT and others to say, hey, write this summary for me, write this report for me, and they'll get a bunch of papers back, and it's students literally doing that. All of them are doing it, and they're getting the same paper. No new information, no other ways of spinning it. It's Chat GPT doing their homework.
two
So
things on that, and it's something especially we broadcast out of Western Michigan University, so this is particularly for the college students. Your brain is like a muscle, if you don't work it out, it's gonna turn into pudding, and I know you don't want that. But there's
yeah,
also a political dimension to this. So going all the way back to this is something we talked a lot about the discourse around like student debt and that, it was I believe one of Reagan's economic advisors that said like we can't have a well-educated proletariat that's dynamite. And what stuff like Chat GPT and Grok and that kind of stuff effectively does is it's trying to basically take away your critical thinking skills. It's trying to get you to offload those tasks, which exercise your brain, which teach you how to think through things. You are giving those tasks to the machine instead, and that it makes you dumb. Like, don't make no mistake, what one of the big failures of the establishment in the last few years has been the way, we especially saw this with Gaza. Their propaganda just doesn't really work when confronted with truth. So the advent of this particular type of AI is a way for them to get around a population that is, I know we give a lot of crap to, the American population for, sometimes believing a lot of weird stuff, but it is a fact that especially younger generations are have been getting sharper and have been expressing more media literacy. So what I see stuff like OpenAI and Grok and ChatGPT is doing is trying to run around that and be like, well, let's just take the critical thinking skills away before they can come to all of these conclusions that are very inconvenient for us, the ruling class.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, I like to say too, it does make me really proud that Michigan is kind of in the vanguard of this anti AI data center movement. And it's again, people are very clear-eyed about, they're not allowing themselves to be BS'd by these companies. Like, we understand the environmental and financial cost of these data centers. That's why even the one data center that's kind of moved up in the process in Saline, I think the Michigan Department, I'm not sure if it was an MDEQ or another Michigan regulatory agency, but they basically told DTE they couldn't move forward unless they basically promised they would not offset the electric costs onto the neighboring municipalities, because that is again something that we've seen happen in other areas. Also, again, Michigan is the home to some of the greatest, biggest sources of fresh water in the world. And it's obvious they need lots and lots and lots of water to run these AI data centers. It's like what's that meme of the guy by a tree just like rubbing his hands together? That's that's these AI companies looking at Michigan. That's what that is.
Yeah, dog. And also, the reason why they were coming to Michigan is because a lot of these data centers need fresh water. You can only run them on fresh water. So that means that means that uh they're they're gonna end up pumping out more pollution into our fresh water. That's not good. That's not good for anybody. That's not and also those data centers are tied to Palantir and other AI software that they're using to scan your faces at protests. They've been doing using that type of technology in the Gaza Strip against Palestinian protesters. Um, they were using it in AI drones for targeting systems. So yeah, you yeah. On the one hand, using it for people who may be disabled, or using it for students who not cheating students, but students who may need help in a classroom is one thing. On the other hand, the applications that these AI data centers are being used for is one being used to spread propaganda, which we saw with Grok, and you cannot how Grok was being used to justify right wing propaganda, and a lot of that is also came out in the new batch of Epstein files that came out. We'll talk about that too. But also, it's being used in weaponry that can and will one day that could possibly the possibility of those systems turning on us is is higher. It's much higher, and that's my speculation. But the people who are using it now for profit have been using it in ways to harm people, and that's why I'm like, nah. Until those programs can be used or put in very specific applications for the betterment of human society, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-tech. I think that I'm pro technology. I want AI, and I want But I also want to protect privacy. I also want to protect American privacy, American rights and privacy and things of that nature. And a lot of those systems are being used to step on our constitutional rights. So it's just, uh,
Yeah, I want to circle back just a little bit to the whole Gretchen Whitmer, Matt Hall thing, and I want to make it really clear. So I mentioned at the top, like, okay, we've got Matt Hall and Gretchen Whitmer in uncharacteristic agreement about the proliferation of AI data centers, right? And again, a lot of it is just, follow the money. The DTE has given um, l- you know, tens of thousands of dollars to both Democrats and Republicans here in the state of Michigan. Um, and it's no coincidence that, on this particular issue, they are in lockstep, even when not only the rank and file and people on the ground are in disagreement, but also even some of the downstream or some of the downstream state representatives are in disagreement about this because of, again, the tremendous public pressure that has been occurring. So it's I think it kind of portends this, you know, there again, the parties are being kind of viewed as very different, especially in this moment of encroaching fascism. But we are at this moment where a lot of the tech oligarchs and the fascists are one and the same. One of the big pushers of this AI boom is Peter Thiel, who wants to use it for his company Palantir, which is literally named after an evil wizard's spy orb. Just to again build a surveillance state. However, that's not something that you are going to hear. Um, I think either Matt Hall or Gretchen Whitmer talk about. So
yeah, no, and the fact that just like in the reason why we can't have nice things, the reason why we can't have universal health care, because the that same corporation donates to both Republicans and Democrats, right? Big pharma and the insurance companies donate to Democrats and Republicans, so they fight against universal health care, or they fight against lowering the cost of prescriptions. It's the same reason why we it's the same reason why when it comes to same thing with gun control, right? You had politicians on the left and on the right who was taking money from the same gun manufacturers, right? To not hold them accountable. It's the same thing here. Why do you think crypto was spending uh over $20 million in the last election? And they would only spend and they were spending it against people who wants to regulate them. They don't want regulation. They want to run wild and free. And we have programmed these companies to maximize profit. And the maximizing that profit will mean that the human cost of that profit, the blood, sweat, and tears and bodies that will be laid as the pavement for that profit will happen. They will step on you, and no matter how that might affect you, for them to make a better profit. And we have politicians that's supposed to represent us help lay us down on the ground. Like, so nah, I'm not. It's not okay. It's not
mhm.
okay. We need to get these type of people out of the space.
Yeah, and we do have the some big elections um coming up here in the state of Michigan. We're going to be choosing a new governor in 2026, as
Yeah,
well as, I believe, a new senator. So it is
Yeah,
a unique time for, I think, the people of Michigan to really, especially around this AI data center point, and really put some pressure on these prospective leaders who are trying to kind of step up and lead our state in the coming year.
yeah, man. Y'all already know where I'm supposed to tell you that I'm not biased. I'm supposed to tell you that I'm supposed to tell you as a person that's on the radio that you need to vote for who you're gonna vote for, and we're supposed to be neutral, right? Yeah, yeah, bump all that. I'm for I'm voting for Abdul Al Sayed. He is the best progressive candidate that we have running right now. Um,
The preceding thoughts,
yeah,
views, and opinions do not represent those of 89.1, blah, 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 blah. Although, if you listen to our radio show for longer than 2 minutes, you probably could have
yeah,
guessed. Um,
you should already know. You should already know. Like, hey, it's progressives versus everybody over here. Okay, that's what it is. It's progressives versus everybody, and I need y'all to know that. So yeah, I'm rocking what I do.
Yeah. Speaking of progressive politicians, I did want to. There's another local Michigan story I want to talk about just a little bit here. For our just thinking a little bit eastward. What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, just looking a little bit eastward towards our Wolverine friends over in Ann Arbor. There is a municipal race that we are going to be keeping our eye on. Um, Yosef Rabhi is going to be challenging the incumbent Democratic Mayor Chris Taylor in the next election. He is a member, he's a Washtenaw County Commissioner and a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. So that's coming up. The Democratic primary is August 4th, so like about 7 months out. Robbie said he's broadly building his campaign around bold solutions to Ann Arbor's affordability problems, providing community members with a far greater voice in solving city issues and taking meaningful steps to insulate the city from Trump administration abuses, especially on immigration. Among other proposals, he is calling for a deep investment in public ownership and stronger city services with the aim of reducing costs for working class residents. Robbie said he would achieve that in part by ending the city's reliance on out of town consultants, limiting tax incentives for developers, reversing the privatization of city services, and making historic investments in affordable publicly owned housing and co ops. He also said he is a strong supporter of municipalizing the city's energy grid as a measure to lower prices and improve reliability. Though Ann Arbor is a liberal stronghold, Robbie would be among the only candidates in recent years to offer a vision from the Bernie Sanders wing of the Democratic Party. The Ann Arbor City Council has long been dominated by two warring Democratic factions who generally offer a similar moderate political philosophy. Robbie said he would offer a third vision. He went on to say, I believe in the principles of working together as a community and finding um, grassroots solutions. And just to kind of summarize a couple other points here. He was part of the Michigan House. He was a state rep from 2017 to 2023. He was one of the most left-leaning members of the House at the time. He describes himself as a sharp critic of DTE, who fought against money in politics for labor rights, for sustainability, and for single-payer healthcare. So he's kind of hitting all ticking all the boxes here so far. Um, and I wanted to just one kind of go down, talk a little bit about the whole privatization point. Excuse me. They interviewed Lauren Gaburi, who's co-chair of the Huron Valley chapter of the DSA. They went on to say the privatization and corporatization of Ann Arbor is not helping the people who make Ann Arbor run. People who live in Ann Arbor and can't afford to live in it anymore are not doing well, and we need somebody like Yusuf on the inside who's going to make changes that help the working class. Rabhi also took aim at the consultant class and said sharply, Ann Arbor already has 100,000 consultants, our residents. There's a clear feeling that people are not being heard by politicians. The public is not at the center of the decision-making process. The city's current public engagement efforts are often performative, and there should be more grassroots input, he added. Um, he's also again questioned certain corporate decisions from the city, like their decision to hire a former DTE energy executive to establish a sustainable energy utility. He's advocate for eliminating DTE energy from the equation altogether by establishing a public power company in Arbor. Oof, oh man, that yeah, you're speaking my language. Um, so yeah, you can read more about him at Michigan Advance. But I don't know, Lawrence, do you have thoughts?
I mean, bro, yeah, we need more Democratic Socialists to win. We just had one win in Texas. We just had one flip. What was that? 30 point seat or something crazy. Uh, so yeah, I'm for it. I'm for. I'm I am always policy first, and the fact that he's he's talking about the energy crisis that is going on in Ann Arbor. He's talking about making it affordability and things of that nature. Um, yeah, like dog, like yeah, I'm for that. I'm for all that smoke.
Yeah, and I think what really interests me about this particular race is, especially in Michigan, there are a few like kind of very kind of liberal, politically liberal areas. Kalamazoo is one of them. But there has kind of been a legacy of, not just in Ann Arbor, but I mean, Kalamazoo has its own kind of history of machine politicians, Mayor Anderson, um, that have really kind of worked hand in glove with, the local big corporate entities and the billionaire class. And I don't think we haven't really seen a big, example of something like this here in Michigan. Abdul might get it. He might, or at least come close. Um, but even on like the municipal level, and not to knock, the current vice mayor is Drew Duncan, who ran a very unabashedly progressive campaign. But when we're talking about elections that have the potential to be really transformative, um, such as like what's going on in Arbor, there's hope that they can pull a W and it can be something that can kind of be replicated in other kind of similar areas like Kalamazoo and all around the state.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
All right. So again, I will link to that in the show notes. Its headline is Rabhi challenges Ann Arbor's Democratic establishment with socialist mayoral bid. That's on Michigan Advanced. It was written by Tom Perkins, published on February 2nd. Lawrence, I think I'm going to take a quick little break and we come back. I think why don't we move on? There's a lot of issues to cover, and yeah, we certainly want to hit the ground running on those.
I have to go in a bit. Um, I'm
Okay.
gonna be back on. I gotta run a quick errand. So I'll be back probably around 1:15.
1:15. All right, sounds good. All right, everybody, we're taking a quick little break. Y'all listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello, everybody out there in Radio Land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. So I want to read this piece from leftvoice.org. It was written last Friday, which some of you might notice was a kind of a national day of action, uh, basically trying to replicate in some fashion the very successful general strike that happened in Minneapolis. And you saw lots of people participating. There was a huge rally in March right here on campus with students from Western. And if you were participated in that, hats off to you. Thank you for using your time and your voice to speak out against ICE. But this is written by Tatiana Cazzarelli. It was published on January 30th, the day of the action last week. Headline is University students and workers must unite and stand up against ICE. Friday was a national day to shut it down against ICE. No work, no school, no shopping. We must bring the struggle to university campuses all over the country and organize students and workers together in the fight against ICE. Friday's national actions against the U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Agency was originally called for by student groups from the University of Minneapolis, the Somali Student Union, the Graduate Student Union, and the Ethiopian Student Union, and more. Already, Minneapolis University students have organized numerous walkouts and massive protests, showing the way forward for universities everywhere. Outside of college campuses, high school students around the country have also been walking out against ICE, speaking out for their classmates, families, and communities. This is the second week of mass actions to shut it down against ICE. Last week, Minneapolis was ground to a halt by strikes, business closures, and massive protests after the murder of Renee Nicole Good. These actions came after weeks of on the ground organizing, street battles against ICE, and community support networks providing care and protection. And then just one day after this massive and historic day of action, ICE murdered healthcare worker Alex Preddy, resulting in a new wave of mobilizations and calls for another day to shut it all down. The mobilizations have forced Trump to take a step back by ousting Nazi coat-wearing Greg Bovino, but this is not nearly enough. Despite the shift in leadership, Minneapolis ICE operations have continued essentially uninterrupted, now under the direction of far-right Tom Homan, which, by the way, a quick side note on Tom Homan. Um, a lot of more center-leaning politicians are like, oh, Tom Homan, he's like an adult in the room. And, he's been in leadership positions in ICE going back to the Obama administration. Just because Tom Homan is you quote unquote bipartisan does not mean he's necessarily better. It basically just means Tom Homan is somebody who knows how to trample on people's rights a little bit more quietly and without quite the amount of audacity as Greg Bovino. And this is also somebody who referred to Minneapolis, an American city full of civilians, as an operating theater. So, man, this is somebody who's viewing operations in an American civilian municipality in terms of war fighting. So, just to kind of tie a knot on that one. The Democrats, while many praise the protests, are trying to contain and quell the radicalism of the actions and are relying on legislative maneuvers that will inevitably lead to ICE's continued funding. The way forward is in the streets. The way forward is in organizing our workplaces. The way forward is in our schools. The university-based campus movement made history when it took over university campuses across the country to decry the brutal genocide and occupation in Gaza and the West Bank. That movement has been beaten back by intense repression, but it has not been defeated. It is time to revive those university-based movements to also include demands to abolish ICE, which has been occupying and terrorizing cities across the United States. Universities are uniquely affected by the surge against immigrants given the large number of international students and international professors that make up our university community. Anyone on a college campus, anyone who knows international students, has heard stories about how they are living in fear from day to day. At universities like CUNY, where I study, where Tatiana Cazzarelli studies, excuse me, large swaths of undergrad students are immigrants or come from immigrant families. Students are finding it difficult to focus or to study because they are afraid that their family members could be deported at any minute. One student said to them, I find it hard to even smile anymore. I'm just so scared of everything going on. We must mobilize on college campuses. We must take the no school seriously in no work, no school, no shopping. University unions, which have organized sickouts and strikes for wages and against the repression of pro Palestine students, have a special role to play in this. And the University of Minneapolis Grad Union is showing the way by supporting today's day of action with a sickout. We must bring this discussion to each of our union halls, organizing discussions and votes around sickouts and strikes. We must also bring the discussion to academic departments. At CUNY's Grad Center, the English department canceled all classes and activities in solidarity with Friday's action. During the International Women's Strike of 2017, the Education Department did the same thing. Department based organizing is essential to organize at the level of our classmates, mobilizing them into action. And the Mighty Student Movement has a central role in the struggle, too. National SJP called to shut it down today, and that must mean organizing on every campus, with spaces for students to discuss, work together, and decide on communal actions. It is essential to also mobilize the YDSA, which has chapters on college campuses around the city and can play a leading role in organizing assemblies, voting next steps, and building the rank and file organization needed to really shut down our universities. What is happening in Minneapolis is historic. It requires historic action on our part in our universities. We must stand up for Minneapolis, calling for ICE out of Minneapolis, but also ICE out of our universities and communities, and ultimately to abolish ICE and the Department of Homeland Security completely. That includes stopping all ICE recruitment on our college campuses and all university cooperation with ICE in terms of administration and academic research, grants, and contracts. ICE has no place in our universities. We have to mobilize them to kick them out of Minneapolis, out of our universities, and to abolish this institution once and for all. That is from Left Voice, written by Tatiana Cosarelli, published January 30th, i.e., the day of action last Friday. Headline: University students and workers must unite and stand up against ICE. I'm going to pivot real quick. So Lawrence is going to be back around 1:15. There was this article I wanted to read. So the previous article just mentioned Gaza, and there was an article from Truth Out that gives us a really important on the ground update. And it is where I know we haven't been covering it on the show quite as much, but that is not to say that the oppression of the Palestinian people does not continue and continue viciously. So I wanted to read from somebody who is in Gaza and can tell us how exactly this quote unquote ceasefire is going. It's written by Hen Salama Abo Hello. It was published on January 27th. Headline is: The Gaza ceasefire is a minefield shallowly masquerading as a truce. Since the supposed ceasefire in Gaza came into effect on October 10th, 2025, I have personally borne witness to two ceasefire breaches in my refugee camp. One was on October 19th, when Israeli forces bombed a cafe, space to breathe away from scenes of destruction, place to work or study with a reliable internet connection, a meeting point for displaced friends, a brief chance to enjoy the moment. I could have been there. I was juggling my studies ahead of a musculoskeletal exam for medical school, planning to go to the cafe for a stable internet connection. But something held me back. I stayed home. Midway through taking my exam at my refugee camp, an explosion shook the ground and billowing smoke blurred our vision. Back then, I did not have the luxury of knowing where it fell or exactly what it hit, but I heard the crowds screeching. My mind was racing as I relentlessly tried to stay focused on answering my exam questions. Then it turned out to be the Twix Cafe I used to visit. The strike left 6 patrons killed and many injured. Their only crime was choosing to live, to breathe, to thrive. But Israeli bombs were already woefully closer. Then Israeli media announced that the Israeli military had ended its escalation in Gaza and achieved its targets. People were left with nothing but to believe in this fragile truce. The second ceasefire breach that touched me personally occurred on November 22nd, when the Israeli military committed a massacre in my neighborhood against an entire family. Members of the Abushawish family were gathered in the hall opening a humanitarian aid parcel when the airstrike hit. Only their eldest daughter survived because she had happened to step into a room just minutes before the airstrike. The family had survived many attacks before, but this one tore them into pieces, inflicting devastation beyond repair. The airstrike also further weakened the already perilous shelters in my camp and damaged water and sewage infrastructure, systems that had been repaired and re-repaired after every previous bombardment. In an instant, Israel wiped out an entire family, tearing them apart and leaving only one survivor, alone, cold, speechless, carrying muffled memories inside a shattered home. And then this section, I think, is important. It brings up some historical context. It's kind of the subheader is this sham ceasefire follows decades of other broken promises. Excuse me. The falsity of the current ceasefire in Gaza should perhaps come as no surprise given all the other broken promises we have endured over the years. In 1993, Palestinians hoped the Oslo Accords, signed between the Palestine Liberation Organization and the Israeli occupation, would bring an end to Israel's expansionist settler colonial project and entrench Palestinians' right to self-determination and sovereignty over their own land, at the cost of relinquishing armed resistance. Nearly 3 decades later, this decree, branded as a peace process, was preserved, yet it has never yielded peace of any kind. Oslo was neither a perfect nor an optimal solution to the Palestinian struggle, but it was believed, perhaps desperately, that it might mitigate decades of apartheid and oppression. Instead, Israeli forces reneged on their promises, further entrenching Palestinian statelessness. Since then, more than 6 wars have been unleashed on Gaza City, punctuated by countless shorter aggressions. After 2 years of genocide, Donald Trump announced a so-called 20-point peace plan unveiled at the White House, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu standing beside him. The plan sidelined Palestinian sovereignty and proposed the establishment of foreign forces to control Gaza, while Palestinian technocrats would be responsible for day-to-day governance under severely limited authority. This was hardly surprising. Purveyors of genocide have long mastered the choreography of violence. When the fire turns against them, they mask their language as salvation. When it serves them, they ignite it and rebrand devastation as a world-changing necessity. The proposal purported to end the bloodshed in Gaza and guarantee a lasting peace in the Middle East. Yet, ultimately, a ceasefire was declared in October 2025. But so far, it has failed to amount to an actual ceasefire. At best, it has produced reduced fire or slow fire. A ceasefire that does not halt killing, does not stop the targeting of buildings, does not mandate the withdrawal of Israeli military forces, and continues to block food, medicine, and fuel from entering except in insufficient quantities cannot, by any definition, be called a ceasefire. Rather, it is a transformed form of death, one that operates in the shadows, not in broad daylight, while the world convinces itself that a chapter of today's atrocities has been closed and numbly moves on to the next eye-catching catastrophe. According to the Gaza government media office, Israel committed 969 ceasefire violations within 80 days of the ceasefire taking effect, resulted in the killing of 418 Palestinians, the injury of 1,141 others, and the detention of 45 people. Among these violations, 289 cases were documented as direct gunfire, 54 as military incursions, and 455 incidents involving shelling and the deliberate targeting of civilians in their homes. Since 1948, the pattern has been glaringly obvious. Israel has never reliably complied with treaties, kept promises, or abided by international law. It wreaks havoc as though the world were not governed by any order, embarking on genocide now justified as a response to October 7th, without mentioning the decades spent killing and dispossessing Palestinians when neither October 7th nor resistance factions even existed to be blamed. Violence is imposed whenever Israeli leaders choose, paused when convenient, and resumed explicitly without charge, only for them to be praised as possessing the most ethical military in the world, shielded from accountability and trusting that time alone will be enough for the world to forget. The late dear Dr. Rafat Al-Dirir, a poet, writer, and lecturer in the English Literature Department at the Islamic University of Gaza, put it plainly as early as 2021 before he was killed in 2023, reasserting that the ceasefire is more a facade than a truce. He said that what usually happens in occupied Palestine is that Palestinians cease and Israelis fire. Indeed. There is no peace in this ceasefire. It is a minefield masquerading shallowly as a truce. In mid December, a wedding ceremony was turned into a bloodbath, killing at least 6 people and severely wounding dozens more. Back then, people were fooled too by the illusion of a ceasefire, naively believing that this would be the last breach. Instead, violence continues unabated in myriad forms, seemingly designed not merely to kill Palestinians, but to deny us any attempt at living. The ceasefire has become a hollow claim, a smokescreen for a concealed, ongoing genocide. Western media outlets turn their backs and endorse Trump's plans as if they are unfolding effectively, all while they are buried under the weight of silence. Even Amnesty International declared in November that Gaza's genocide is far from over. As of December 2025, evacuation orders were issued in Gaza City's Al Tulfa neighborhood aimed at expanding the Yellow Line and consolidating control over Gaza. People outside of Gaza are still misled into believing that the genocide has ended, the starvation has vanished, and recovery has begun. Meanwhile, during the supposed ceasefire, Israeli forces attacked young girls in Khan Yunis, claiming they posed a threat, and the menacing drone flying overhead continues to fill us with dread. The sound of explosions targeting what remains within the Yellow Line stripped me of any sense of safety. The complete blockade, the restrictions imposed on aid trucks and humanitarian organizations, and the systematic denial of medication have shattered any illusion of ceasefire. The bombs may be reduced in number, but they are still falling. That was Hind Salama Abu Hello. They're a researcher, writer, and medical student at Al Azhar University in Gaza. She is also a writer with We Are Not Numbers and has published the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs, Institute for Palestinian Studies, Mondoweiss, and Al Jazeera. She believes in writing as a form of resistance, a silent witness to atrocities committed against Palestinians, and a way to achieve liberation. Again, that was on Truth Out. The Gaza ceasefire is a minefield shallowly masquerading as a truce. It's published on January 27th. We are going to take a quick break. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast, your source for political revolution. Well, hello, everybody out there in radio land. We are back. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. I'm going to be joined by my co-host again in a few minutes here. Got to dig into some more national news. I wanted to point out this article, though. I know there's been a lot of people talking about ICE lately. We just had that big rally up on campus on Friday, kind of in conjunction with a lot of stuff going on all over the country. I wanted to bring up something that happened a little bit closer to home over in the Detroit area. Some reporting from the World Socialist website. Written by Anthony Callahan, published earlier today, or I guess early this morning, late last night. ICE arrest man in raid of Amazon facility in Hazel Park, Michigan. On Monday morning, ICE and other federal agents raided the Amazon facility in Hazel Park, part of an escalating series of actions in southeastern Michigan. Sources confirm the arrest of one person, Edwin Romero Gutierrez, a Venezuelan national. A video posted on Instagram by the Metro Detroit News shows the interior of the Amazon facility during the raid. One individual, apparently Romero Gutierrez, is shown surrounded by 4 or 5 agents. Comments on the video were overwhelmingly hostile to ICE. We have to stand against this, one worker wrote. Another commented, why would Amazon allow them on the premises? Another declared the whole shift should have walked out. According to ICE, as reported by the Detroit Free Press, Romero Gutierrez entered the United States in 2023, at which time he was arrested by Border Patrol. ICE agents claim that they attempted to pull Gutierrez over in his vehicle on Monday, and he attempted to flee by car and then on foot before entering the Amazon warehouse. ICE also stated that a security guard at Amazon permitted agents to enter the facility to make the arrest. It is unknown at this time whether ICE made additional arrests at the facility. There's still much that is not known about Gutierrez's arrest, and nothing ICE says can be believed. However, ICE has not alleged that Romero Gutierrez has committed any crime that could justify his arrest, as living in the U.S. without documentation is not a crime, and entry into the U.S. without inspection can be a misdemeanor. The report from ICE on the arrest treats Romero Gutierrez's 2023 arrest when he entered the United States as particularly relevant to Monday's arrest. However, he was clearly released from immigration custody after his initial arrest, uh, demonstrating that Border Patrol did not consider him a threat. The arrest in Hazel Park is part of a campaign of state sponsored terror across the United States, including the murder of Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, which has sparked mass protests. Well, there's some weird sound in the studio, folks. Sorry, sorry about the disruption. So maybe some snow falling down or something. Anyway, I was like, I don't know if the feds are finally after me, folks. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, excuse me. The Democrats are trying to present tactical maneuvers on the part of Trump as a retreat. The administration is, in fact, continuing ICE raids throughout the country, including in Minneapolis itself. Romero Gutierrez, as an undocumented immigrant, would have been acutely aware of his precarious legal status and personal safety when confronted by immigration agents. As of this writing, it is unclear whether the security guard who permitted ICE entry into the premises was under direct instructions from Amazon to cooperate with immigration operations. Amazon and Jeff Bezos, Amazon's largest individual shareholder and the world's fourth richest person with a net worth of $253 billion, have deep ties to the Trump regime. Amazon donated $1 million to Trump's 2025 presidential inaugural committee, and Bezos is actively allying himself with the Trump administration. Amazon is slated to slash 16,000 jobs on top of the 14,000 jobs cut in late 2025, as it uses advances in technology to implement a jobs massacre. More than 2,000 Amazon jobs have already been eliminated in the Seattle, Washington area. Amazon made $56.4 billion in profits in the same 9 months of 2025. Hazel Park, a working class suburb of Detroit, has a population of approximately 15,000, more than 97% of whom are U.S. citizens. Approximately 4.5% of Hazel Park residents were born outside the United States, lower than the Michigan average of 7.4%. However, as ICE has repeatedly made clear, its mission is not that of immigration enforcement, but as a federal occupying force aimed at suppressing the working class. ICE operations in Michigan have increased in recent weeks. In late January, federal agents abducted at least 4 immigrant parents while they were waiting to pick up their children from school in Ypsilanti. The operations were carried out with such secrecy and violence that the local school district issued warnings urging students to walk in groups and use trusted carpools. Earlier in the month, 3 immigrants were arrested during a traffic stop in Sterling Heights, one of many such routine encounters now used to detain and deport people with no criminal background. ICE has also reportedly been sighted near Canton, Royal Oak, and other cities in southeastern Michigan. According to the most recent available data, ICE arrests in Michigan more than doubled in 2025, reaching 2,349, a staggering 230% increase from the previous year. Nearly 3/4 of those arrested had no prior criminal history. Many were seized in everyday settings, at green card interviews, on the way to work, near schools, and in their own homes. Agents now frequently wear plain clothes, refuse to identify themselves, and operate in unmarked vehicles. In one case last fall, a Honduran immigrant with a U.S. citizen spouse and 2 children was abducted during his morning commute. There's mounting public resistance to this campaign of terror. Protests, marches, and school walkouts have taken place in Ann Arbor, Detroit, Traverse City, and other cities, including, again, right here on campus last Friday. On February 4th, thousands of students in the Canton and Plymouth school districts are planning to walk out in solidarity with their immigrant classmates and families. So anyway, if you want to read that for yourself, you can find that. That's World Socialist website headline: ICE arrests man in raid of Amazon facility in Hazel Park, Michigan. That was written by Anthony Callahan, published early this morning. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep your dial locked. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. And then, yeah, see, all right. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Lawrence, welcome back. How you doing?
Oh, all right. Brave and cold.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just got wrapped up talking about some statewide stories, and I think it's about time we talk about things. That one topic for the Epstein's time. We've had to talk about it. Yeah,
Man.
unless you've been living in a cave, you probably heard there was another drop of the Epstein files over the weekend. Um, it's
Million files, and they've only dropped 3 million of them. So for every
yes,
one we see, there's at least another three that we haven't. One, two, or three that we haven't.
yeah, and they're trying to claim that's the end, that's the last drop, etc. But of course, there's still many, many more. And judging from what they did drop, and then some of the stuff they immediately removed, it really does beg the question, like, if that's the stuff that they're just putting out there, God, what else is there to find out? I did for my own commentary. I kind of just want to focus on the new things that we've learned. Although this is definitely a big reminder that the ruling class is made up of some real monsters. Oof, there's there are some reports that like they just some really disgusting out there allegations. Some of the really outlandish stuff doesn't is from like a tip line, but there's also a lot of stuff that is from like sworn testimony about again, talking about child essay, from people like the President of the United States. So yeah, I would say don't really look into this stuff unless you have a very strong stomach because some of it is just absolutely disgusting. Even some of the secondhand accounts of it are just gross. Also,
Uh,
as some of the people in Congress and in the media have pointed out, just the abject incompetence of the Department of Justice failing to redact the names of victims. Well, of course, redacting the names of the ruling class perpetrators. Interestingly enough, and also literally publishing uh, CP on the Department of Justice website. So, Lawrence, again, I will talk more later. But I wanted to get what are some of your thoughts about this latest drop here?
yeah, bro. 45 and 47. President 45 and 47 is mentioned more times in the Epstein files than Jesus is mentioned in the Bible. Like, like
Yeah, good.
like you know what I'm saying? Like crazy. Yeah. Uh Spoiler, not spoiler, trigger warning, because this topic that we're about to talk about has a lot of content in it that's not for the faint of heart, at all. Uh, like the stuff that we the some of the what I've noticed is that the media is quick. When we're talking about media analysis, the media has been quick to jump to the spicy headlines of which celebrities are in there that's tied up in these files, right? You know, you had Jay Z's name came up, and other artists' names come up, right? Um, uh, which came from the FBI tip line. Not saying that it's not true, but there's no verifiable evidence to prove that it is, right? It's just merely speculation. Uh, and I find it crazy because the things that are not speculation, the calendar girl parties that Trump had at Mar-a-Lago, right, with his teen models, right? We knew about this. It's verified. We knew about this. The blackmail of Bill Gates is verified. Even people like Alan Dershowitz and the people that are in Trump's cabinet and circle now, going on media and saying we had nothing to do with him, and then you see them emailing him about when's the next party, when's the next time we're gonna have pizza and grape soda, speaking in code, right? And even uh Ghislaine and Epstein saying, "Hey, some of the stuff that y'all are asking for, you do not send in the email. Call me." Right, right. The stuff that, from a media analysis perspective, that makes me the most upset is that the ties to Russia, mainstream media doesn't have no problem talking about. Ties to other foreign governments, media has no problem talking about. But when it comes to his ties to Israel, they do not touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, and it's probably some of the most probably some of the most prolific material in there, talking about again hosting Mossad agents at his house, and talking very openly about intelligence with the Israeli government. This isn't like the stuff of like rank conspiracy or stuff. It's just stuff like they themselves were talking about in these emails. But of course, yeah, as you mentioned, that gets that part is not really talked about by the mainstream media. It's kind of glazed over. And again, it's uh, something that when some of this other material was dropping late, or it was like what earlier last year, there's it was a similar pattern. There's like a lot of, especially I think even more so in the last dump than this one. There was just so much about uh Jeffrey Epstein's connections with the Mossad, that like
Uh,
any logical person would be like he was like an intelligence asset. That's exactly how he's behaving. But yeah, like that wasn't something the mainstream media would talk about at all. And this was in a media environment where we had people like Larry Ellison, Barry Weiss taking over, mainstream sections of the corporate media, the takeover of CBS and TikTok by the Ellisons, has been what's going on concurrently during these drops. So yeah, again, a lot from the media trying to not draw out that connection from, again, a concerned public that just, we were just live streamed a genocide over the last 2 years. Um, and it's kind of part of their campaign to try to, what's the word, fix their image, or
yeah,
absolve their image, something like that.
Very wise, and it talks about that in some of the latest dumps. Very wise, and some of the people that are connected to that are name dropped. They are name dropped in the files. They're trying to rehabilitate their image, and it's Democrats and Republicans. And I and why? Why are you trying to rehabilitate the images of these people are who are being chummy and best friends with this consultant, uh this consultant asset of multiple governments, right? He did this was a honeypot scheme for rich elites and government officials. Um, they knew this. They all knew this. This is the reason why Epstein was making the money that he made. This is the reason why he was able to move in the circles that he was able to move in. Um, there's no denying it at the point. Even though Cash Patel tried to lie and say there was no blackmail, there was no he wasn't doing services that there's nothing to indict or anything of the nature. Oh no, there's a lot. There's a lot. They were lying and protecting not just Trump, but, and this is my speculation, I think Bibi Netanyahu, I think Saudi Arabian government officials, I think Russian government officials. I think there's a lot of people that's in positions of power. I mean, even NFL billionaire football owners were all name dropped, right? The issue that I have, and this is, and I wrote about it on Facebook, and I wrote about it on my page. It's bad enough that we've had that both, we understand why Trump didn't want any of this stuff out on his half. He wants to save his own tail. He doesn't really care about Bill Clinton or anybody else, but he wants to save his own tail. He doesn't want the world to see the actually horrific monster that he truly was and what he was doing with Epstein. The Democrats, though, and this is where we have to call out that this is the big club and that we're not in it. To quote George Carlin, right? After January 6th, before January 6th, and after January 6th, they could have released this, even though some of it was in discovery, some of it was an investigation. The large portion of stuff that is very notable that's been coming out, they could have been investigated. They could have investigated. They could have held those that were accountable. They could have been dropped this as well. Why didn't they? Because yes, they were also trying to protect the same people that Trump and his administration is protecting now.
Yeah, you
All of
see
them.
this, not just with like, I think Bill Clinton's probably the most like high profile figure in all this, but like you have Democratic strategists like Larry Summers, they are all over this most recent dump, and his fingerprints are still in the Democratic Party. He had a role in trying to draft up this Project 2029, which is kind of like the corporate Democrats' answer to Project 2025. But like, yeah,
But,
a lot
but
of their own people, so to speak, their own donors, their own strategists, their own figures, are also in these files. And it's like honestly, I think part of it is just the incompetence of the Trump administration that do not know how to properly redact a PDF are part of the reason that we know as much as we do right now.
Doug, the yes, and the other part of it that is so insane to me, like so I know we've been talking about a lot of, so a lot, some of the stuff that we've been talking about was dark. One of the funny stories that did come out of all of this, Elon Musk, and Elon has to come sit at the front of the congregation. I I need to speak to you.
This is one of like if there's any just like catch your breath. This is one little ray of I don't even say like sunshine, but just something genuinely
So
funny out of all of this. Yeah, you go
so
ahead, but
so there's been a number of people who said I didn't associate with Jeffrey. He was disgusting. And we see emails of, hey man, when's the next party? Let's, what I'm saying, I will live right next to you. That's done. You know what I'm saying? Let's go kick it again, right? I'm looking at what was it, the financial person of the Trump administration. I'm looking at you, right? But Elon,
yeah.
on Christmas Day, Christmas Christmas Day, Christmas Day, you sent an email to to the world's greatest PDF file, to the president of PDF Files Incorporated. You sent an email to him saying, "Hey yo, I've been working so hard. I'm so stressed. When can I come out and party on Christmas? On Christmas? Think about it on like the thing that made me crazy. I'm like, it's Christmas. You're the
I
world's
think
richest.
the
You're like,
one that really hit me was Elon. So there's an exchange. Elon is asking Jeffrey, "When are you about to throw another epic party, my bro? Girls FTW." For when? And you literally see this exchange where Jeffrey Epstein like forwards it to Ghislaine. It's like, Ghislaine, could you please deal with this guy? And she's just like, oh, I'm so sorry, Elon. We're winding things down on the island. We're not throwing a pedo party. We'll let you know if we're throwing any pedo parties in the future. I'm sure it's it's the funniest thing in the world because like Elon Musk it's like it has the same energy of like you have that really annoying guy who wants to like come to your party. It's like don't tell Greg. I don't want him here, man.
Yeah.
He's a loser. He's a like we learned a lot from this latest dump.
Let me finish.
The moral depravity of the ruling class, but also in a fun lighter note, how much the ruling class thinks Elon Musk is a total loser, and they don't want to hang out with him.
You know how garbage of a human being you have to be for the people of Elite Sex Crimes Incorporated thinks that you're too lame to kick it with.
Oh,
That's no. It's not even just that, dog. I'm like, dog. No, the one on Christmas is what's the one that bothers me. It's
yeah.
Christmas. You're around your friends, your family. You're the richest person in the world. You got everybody gifts. You got your wife there. There is nothing in the world should distract you from kicking it with the people that are around you. And one of the emails you send out to that day is to the pedo guy to see if you can go party with the pedo guy. Like money, I feel like when you have that much money, you feel like you cannot be held accountable for any of your actions. It does eat your soul. Like that saying. What does it gain a man? What does it gain a man to gain the world but lose your soul? This is what that is. This is that. This
Yeah.
is that in
You
particular.
can't buy family or love or coolness or people that care about you. And in that
Dog,
sense, like you and me are going to be infinitely wealthier than Elon Musk ever will be. So, yeah.
dog. And so it's that. So there's that, right? Um there's also been videos. There's been previous videos that's been going viral of women that were associated with Trump's tower talking about how some people that Epstein and Trump were associated with may have been into cannibalism. That's a thing that also came out during these dumps. Um, people people disappearing, and that's the thing that for me the Justice Department should have prosecuted because there's no statute of limitations on murder, and there's multiple stories that's come out in these emails of them torturing folks, people feeling like, hey, I can't say no to Ghislaine or I can't say no to such and such because if I do, they're gonna kill me, and then those people end
Yeah.
up dead a week later.
By the way, there was an email. This isn't just like, some random tip. There was some email from to Jeffrey Epstein from somebody whose name was redacted because, of course, the DOJ is protecting all of these rich, powerful pedophiles. Something to the effect of like, I love the torture video. So like, there is like some verification that like, no, there's this depravity, at least some of it, is real. There was something very messed up going
Yeah,
on the island, man. Like,
one of the email exchanges with Jeffrey was they were talking about a girl. They were talking about a one of the girls that he was selling, and he was like, "Did you torture them? Did you torture her? Like, what? Like, what is this?
it's
Leon
funny
Black.
because like we remember back because this happened while we were on air, of course, all the QAnon stuff and going back and like the Pizzagate, all that stuff, and it has you reevaluating some of that stuff because yeah, they also were talking about pizza quite a bit, but
Wait,
this
wait,
it's
wait, wait.
that classic Goebbels quote, accuse the other side of that of which you are guilty, and it sounds like we're one of the more interesting things from these files. We've talked a lot on the show about how the culture war is manufactured, and one of the new things we really learned with this recent dump was kind of a peel behind the curtain of how that how the sausage is made. And There was literally the founder of 4chan and Poll was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. His name was in the document dump. And furthermore, like there is some evidence that like they were kind of salting some stories, the whole Pizzagate stuff, um, uh, almost ahead of time to kind of like divert the attention to someone else. Um, Not only that, but to, like more uh, kind of talking about something a little bit more pedestrian, but also really huge is, the idea that they were nurturing a lot of alt-right culture memology on 4chan, and it was like a very deliberate concoction by, Epstein and people in his inner circle. I think that's probably the biggest chunk of news that I don't think is getting covered enough. Is just like this, the way our culture has been just shaken in this weird direction last 10 years was deliberately planned by a handful of people who also engaged in horrific sex crimes. That is really something else. And also, I should mention, we're talking about culture wars. There was an email exchange. This goes back to 2014, between like Epstein and some other people in the circle about really pushing transphobic hate as like a political tactic. At one point, he's coaching anti-trans um, rhetoric to politicians in the UK. So it's fascinating from my perspective to see that like we talk about it in the abstract how the culture wars are used deliberately to distract people, but I don't. It's rare that you see it in such black and white terms. The people ostensibly running things really like deliberately planning this stuff and gaming it out, and it's right there in black and white.
Yeah, yeah. All the things that happened on 4chan, all the things that was connected to Palantir, and all those tech gurus, all of them were connected to Epstein. To Epstein, all of them was in the files. They all partied with him. You want to know who was not partying with him? You want to know who's not on the list? Drag queens,
No.
immigrants,
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
uh, uh, uh,
I don't see any
black
trans
journalists.
people in the files.
Right. I don't see any of these librarians, all these trans athletes. You want to see all the things, black radicals, right? What was it? Black identity extremists. You don't see any of them in the Epstein files.
I will tell
I
you two individuals that are in the files, but for a very interesting reason. Bernie Sanders is in the Epstein files, and it's because of several email exchanges from these rich people complaining about how much their kids like Bernie Sanders and his policies, and it's like, several of them complaining about it.
Yes, several were complaining about Bernie, and again, I want to go back out there. Like I have my problems with Bernie Sanders, and we've talked about it and discussed it, but he is the goat. You have to put him in goat status. In goat status. You hate me, judge me by my enemies. The people who are in the who are tied to Epstein hates Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders is base. because, because not because Bernie Sanders stole a girl, not because Bernie Sanders uh did them dirty at a party. No, Bernie Sanders' policy is based and their children love him. That's no right.
I
Judge
also
me by
want to point out, so Jeffrey Epstein kind of he had this attitude like he could just order intellectuals to his island, like ordering a pizza. He's like, get me in touch with there's a lot of hay has been made about his connection with in relationship with Noam Chomsky and some other intellectuals and artists. But I want to give a shout out to Norm Finkelstein. If you don't know who Norm Finkelstein is, he's a famous anti-Zionist lecturer and professor. And apparently, at one point, Harvard
had
professor Robert Trivers tried to get Jeffrey Epstein in touch with him. And Finkelstein's reply was the stuff of legend. He wrote back. He sent a reply calling Alan Dershowitz a pedophile rapist and saying Trevor should be ashamed for defending them, and both of them should just be strangled. So this
Right. Like
is the correct
again,
response, by the way. So my friend
no,
Jeffrey wants you to invite you to an island. Oh well, I got these hands, and I can. I'll show him that.
right, right. Like Norm, like I have my issues with Norm when he talks about black issues, but Norm is fantastic, especially when it comes to talking about Israel and Palestine and things of that nature. And yeah, his response was, "What you're supposed to say? Hey, the PDF file wants to get in contact with you. Tell them to get in contact with Jesus. Like, try Jesus, not me, because I got hands. Okay, like
Mhm.
that's what you're supposed to respond with. You're not supposed to be like Elon and be like, hey man, uh, uh, when can I come? When can I come to the next party? Like, you're not
Yeah.
supposed to be that.
Yeah. Are you
Like,
having girls
bruh,
there? Oh,
yeah,
for the win. FTW. Epic bacon at Epstein. What a dork! I
yeah.
can't. I can't get over it. He's such.
So
Oh
I,
man.
I the other thing that I thought was crazy. Okay, so the type of blackmail. So I've read a bunch of the Epstein stuff because I wanted to see how because he didn't write well, but he would write memos to himself, stuff that he would probably end up saying in person. This is how I'm speculating because the thing that he did with Bill Gates, how he wrote out, hey Bill, we were supposed to have a deal, right? But you were crying to me about deleting the fact that you were sleeping with some Russian working girls, allegedly, and you caught something, and then you gave it to your wife, and you were crying to me because you wanted me to give you medicine so you can give it to your wife secretly. First of all, first of all, you chose to go have sex at one of his parties with you chose to step out on your wife. First of all, trash. Just trash. First, you chose to step out on your wife. Second, you chose to step out on your wife. You chose a working girl. You know what? You know what I'm saying? Hey, all work. You chose a working girl. I ain't gonna question who you choose with. But you chose not to wear a rubber. You chose not to wear a rubber. like, like,
Microsoft will not protect you from those viruses, my friend. I'm sorry.
right? Right? So, so is and again, allegedly, because Elon was banned from Xbox Live because he liked playing Call of Duty and Halo. Allegedly, he was banned from playing online because of his dispute with Gates. And
Man.
and I'm just saying, and the other thing that makes me just so angry, just so angry. Uh, like dog, that whole situation, seeing how he writes out his memos so that he can say these things to you, so he doesn't have to email them, is crazy. But I want to get off that because I know we ain't got a lot of time left. And I want to just say this last thing because we gotta talk about something happy after all that trash. The Grammys just happened, right? Nicki Minaj got dragged by Trevor Noah. Hilarious. Trevor Noah was fantastic. He also talked about Donald Trump, and now Donald Trump is trying to sue him for jokes. He's trying to sue Trevor
Oh,
for
that's right.
jokes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Dog, the attacks on the First Amendment is crazy. Also, K. Dot, Kendrick Lamar. He is the he breaks Jay Z record of having 27 Grammy awards. He has 27 Grammy awards, right? K. Dot. He's the most decorated hip hop artist of all time. We can now make the argument that he is the GOAT. I personally thought that Let God Sort Him Out should have won Hip Hop Album of the Year, but it went to GNX. I'm not mad at it. GNX was a fantastic album, and and K. Dot becomes one of the only artists to win Song of the Year, or was it Song of the Year with Luther, right? And he's one of only four artists to ever win it twice in a row. Uh,
Yep.
we have Roberta Franklin, U2, Billie Eilish, and now Kendrick Lamar, K. Dot. So fantastic year for hip hop. Shout out to the Clips. They did win Best Hip Hop Song with Chains and Whips featuring K. Dot. Um, Shout out to all of the Grammy winners who spoke out against ICE. Shout out to
That's
all
true.
of
Yeah.
them that chose to take the capital that they have at one of the biggest moments of their life to speak out for human rights. And I can't wait to see the Super Bowl because all the people that was complaining about Kendrick Lamar saying that you don't know what he was saying. Woo! I can't wait to see what you're gonna say about Bad Bunny.
Oh man. Yeah. Oof.
I can't wait. um
All
and
right. So we're a little over time, so we got to wrap it up.
oh no, I'm
Um,
having that's all. I just wanted to wrap up with some
okay.
positivity.
Yeah. I just wanted one last thing. Then we're gonna close out the show. Stay tuned. My music show is next. Electropop therapy. But as one last thing on the whole the gross little Epstein business, and
Ah,
if hearing about all this stuff makes you feel like just ill to the core of your soul, that's the correct response. This is some gross stuff. Hearing that we are being run by just these really just evil people. There's no other way to say it.
they're
Um,
trying. If you know people and they still support this, you know people and they still support Trump, you know people, and maybe they're young, maybe their frontal lobe is not fully developed. So if they're 23 to 25, you might still get a pass. But anybody else, if you show them the information from the files dump and they still support this, they're too far gone. They're in the cult.
mhm.
Gotta let them go.
Yeah, and I've been thinking a lot too about how, like, you look back at history and the American Revolution. Founding fathers were able to convince people to go to war over taxation, soldiers quartering in their houses. The French Revolution happened because the peasants were not getting enough food. The Bolsheviks in Russia, they overthrew the czars over peace, land, and bread. And I'm looking at what our ruling class is doing, and I'm just thinking it's like I think maybe something's got to give, man. Other stuff history has happened for less. I'll just leave it at that. All right. Okay, Lawrence, I think we're gonna have to close it out. Any other last things before we wrap it up?
Nah, bro. Hey, happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month. Yeah.
Yeah, happy Black History Month. Uh, if if you are going to do something this Black History Month, make sure that you uh read up on not just slavery, not just Jim Crow, but find some other facts that you didn't know about Black. In the 100 in your average uh textbooks on Black history, find something else. Find something else that you didn't know. You know,
Yeah, yeah. My
do some.
my pledge this month, I'm finally gonna get dig into Black Reconstruction by W.B. Du Bois,
Yeah.
which is a pretty thick tome, but I think I can do it. All right. Okay, everybody. Thanks again for listening. Y'all have been listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR. You can also find us on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast on most podcasting apps. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.